Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So I'm continuing my Spooktober marathon. On October 1st, I watched Sleepy Hollow, and I did a video on that. So for anyone interested in that, I'll make sure to link it in the description below. And I'm starting off day 2 of Spooktober with one of my favorite slasher movies ever, and that is Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, which is how I'm going to be referring to the movie from here on out. Not only is Jason Lives just a really well-made, super fun, entertaining slasher movie, it is without question, in my mind, the best Friday the 13th movie, because even though I'm a big fan of the series, hence why I own the Shout Factory box set right here, a lot of these movies aren't particularly good. And I know this. I mean, these movies are hot garbage, but I enjoy for the most part. There's only, I think out of all the movies, the only Friday the 13th movies I don't really enjoy. I don't enjoy Part 3. I know that's a fan favorite with some people. I find that movie to be so unbelievably boring. I know that's the one where he gets the hockey mask. I don't care. It's boring as shit. Jason Takes Manhattan is another one that's just an absolute slog to get through. And then Jason Goes to Hell is probably the one that I hate the most, because it's not even a Jason movie. I don't even know what the hell that movie is. It's just terrible on every single level. It's just a terrible movie. The rest of the movies I enjoy just for schlocky, sleazy entertainment, but Jason Lives is one that stands out to me as being hands down the best directed one, the best atmosphere, the best pacing, and the one that is the most consistently entertaining. Even in the other Friday the 13th movies that I enjoy, there are moments where the movies are kind of a slog. You take like Part 2, for example. I like Friday the 13th Part 2 quite a bit, actually. But like, there are so many scenes in that movie where it's just like our characters are walking around doing nothing. I mean, look at the opening scene in that movie where we bring back the final girl from the first movie. She's just aimlessly walking around, and that's the movie's idea of creating suspense, but it's not suspenseful. It's boring. And then she very, obviously dies with an ice pick to the head. And it's like, there's so many scenes in the other Friday the 13th movies where it's like, okay, I get it. And you're not really watching the movies for any other reason other than I want to see Jason kill some teenagers. That's why you watch the movies. That's why they're fun, because you don't take them seriously. They indulge in every single cliche imaginable, and they're fun to laugh at, which is why I like them. But Part 6 is the one that is the most self-aware. There is a meta element to Jason Lives that was not only a new thing for the franchise, but something that was relatively new to horror. There aren't that many self-aware horror movies during this time.
Darren, we better turn around.
Why?
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
I mean, one of the movies that was very ahead of its time in terms of meta commentary is a horror movie that features the same actor who plays Tommy Jarvis in this. Tom Matthews is in Return of the Living Dead, which is another fantastic 80s horror movie. That's a movie that's very self-aware and makes references to other zombie movies. That was very ahead of its time. And Jason Lives takes kind of a similar note, where it's like the movie is winking at the audience quite a bit, because at this point in the franchise, Friday the 13th was running out of steam. Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, is terrible, but it's also super hilarious for all the wrong reasons. So I don't hate Part 5 like a lot of people do. I think it's an awful movie, but I laugh so hard watching it.
Oh, some damn enchiladas. Oh.
There's a lot of goofiness stuff, but it is objectively a terrible movie. And so the executives at Paramount, they're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Because now we've officially hit the bottom of the barrel. Who can we get to try to bring back this franchise and try to bring some more energy to it and resurrect it, if you will, which this movie quite literally does with Jason. So they hired Tom McLaughlin. And so Tom McLaughlin said in this amazing, actually, it features both the Nightmare on Elm Street making of series and Crystal Lake Memories. This is awesome for this is a must-have for fans of both of these franchises. So I was watching a little bit of the making of Part 6, and Tom McLaughlin was like, "Yeah, I wasn't really a fan of the Jason movies." He's like, I wasn't really super excited at the idea of trying to write a new one because I thought the series kind of ran out of steam. He said he watched all 5 movies in a screening room back to back in a day, and he's like, what can I do with this franchise that's different? And he said one of his biggest influences for this movie was injecting some gothic horror atmosphere. And this is one of the many, many elements as to why I absolutely love this movie. In terms of atmosphere, in terms of like a great, creepy, cozy slasher movie vibe, I don't know how anyone could argue with me that saying that Jason Lives is the weak Friday the 13th movie in terms of atmosphere. It's not. It's definitely the best. The opening of this movie alone, where we get the fog creeping in on the lake, we're going to a creepy cemetery. The scene almost feels like an homage to Frankenstein, where they're going to get the corpse to the monster. And then, of course, Jason gets brought back with a bolt of lightning. And so there's a lot of gothic imagery and atmosphere in this movie that is just so awesome. There's so many standout scenes just in terms of the way they're shot and the overall feel of them. One of the best scenes of the whole movie is when Jason... Oh, that's the other thing I almost forgot to mention, is that out of all the Friday the 13th movies, this is the only one that features kids at the camp, because Jason always seems to be killing the camp counselors on the off season when they're kind of like building up the camp or whatever. They're getting ready for summer, and then Jason kills them all. So this is the only Friday the 13th that's like, hey, let's actually have kids at this camp. And that creates a whole other layer of suspense to this movie. So the scene that I was referring to is the scene where Jason walks into the children's quarters. They're all sleeping. You see the leaves roll in on the floor. He's walking. He's looking around the kids. And the whole time you're watching, you're like, oh no, is this movie going to cross the line? Is he really going to kill the kids? And spoiler alert, he doesn't, but the suspense is enough. Like, it's so great, and the movie does a good job with actually setting up certain things and paying them off later. That scene is a good example where that little girl was told by the camp counselor that if you see a monster, you close your eyes and you say a prayer and the monster goes away, and that's what happens in the movie. So there's a couple of little setups and payoffs that are really enjoyable, and the movie is super fast paced. I mean, my complaints with the other Friday the 13th movies, even some of the best ones, I love Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. That one's definitely my second favorite. Whenever I'm in the mood for Friday the 13th, I jump back and forth between Part 4 and Part 6. Those are my two go-tos. And they're the ones I've rewatched the most, hands down. Part 4 is really good, but once again, there are some moments where you're hanging around boring characters and it's going on for too long, and there's no sense of urgency. Right off the bat with Jason Lives, there is a plot. There's Tommy Jarvis. He wants to destroy Jason's body. He accidentally resurrects it with a bolt of lightning. It's stupid, but it works for the movie because I think the movie knows that it's stupid, and it constantly winks at the audience being like, hey, no need to take this seriously. Let's just have fun. But his character, him trying to desperately stop Jason and trying to get the sheriff to acknowledge that, no, I'm not crazy. Jason is out there. He's killing people. And the cop is not buying it. He's like, no, whatever. You're crazy. I don't believe you. But the movie just, once it starts, once we get that James Bond sequence, it's just go, go, go. There are no slow moments in this movie. There's no moments in this movie where it feels like it's deliberately wasting my time, like it is in some of the more boring Jason entries, like Part 3 and Part 8, I think are the biggest slow, boring Jason movies ever. Like, just nothing happens. You don't care. This movie, there's a sense of urgency. There was like, Tommy has to stop Jason at all costs, and he's going to do everything he can, and it's like, boom, I'm in. I'm hooked. One of the complaints against Jason Lives is that the kills are fairly tame. Now, I understand this complaint because for the vast majority of the other Friday the 13th movies, you watch these movies for the kills. So in that sense, that's why my second favorite Friday the 13th is Part 4. That's where Tom Savini came back because he did the effects for the first movie. And he's like, I created this monster. I want to kill him once and for all. So he came back for Part 4, and that's where you get the most iconic, most memorable kills. And so when I'm in the mood to watch Jason at his most creative in terms of killing, you go to part 4. But the fact that part 6, yes, the kills aren't up to the same quality as part 4 is, the fact that everything else in the movie is so far above the rest of this series, I think that's a testament to just how legitimately well made Jason Lives is. This is the only Friday the 13th movie that you will hear me say is legitimately well directed. I know some people, some Friday fans, don't like this movie because they think it's too silly. And, you know, I can sort of understand that complaint too, but the fact of the matter is, I don't take this franchise even remotely seriously, so the fact that this movie makes fun of itself is a total bonus for me. So I don't have a problem with it. And I don't think the movie ever goes too far. It doesn't go like Super Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street 5 goofy. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't get that hammy. Like this movie has its moments where it takes itself seriously. And that gets in the other aspect of what I love about this movie is that when there are slow scenes in this movie, they are legitimately suspenseful. I think my favorite scene in any of the Friday the 13th movies, a scene that's outside of Jason doing an awesome kill, is the scene where one of our counselors, I forget their name. I don't know any of the counselors' names. They're all so forgettable. But it's the one that was talking to the little girl, telling her about her trick of closing her eyes and saying a prayer to make the monster go away. When she's walking by the window and Jason's just right there and she doesn't see him, that whole scene up until her death is legitimately suspenseful, and I would argue the most suspenseful scene in all of the Friday the 13th movies. It is so well done. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. It is hands down my favorite Jason movie, with Part 4 being a close second. I like Part 4 quite a bit, actually. In fact, I could see myself doing a video on Part 4 in the future. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Jason Lives. Tell me what you think about it. Are you guys like me? Do you agree this is the best Friday movie? Do you disagree? And rankings of the Friday the 13th franchise. Put them in the comments below. I want to see them. And as always, thank you guys for watching.